So a little starter to this. I got into this because I've been moonlighting working for the FCC, working as part of their enforcement bureau. So when things get reported, the FCC investigates them. The FCC's got a really actually nice process because they only have a year in their statute of limitations, so they have to dive in. And last year, actually just starting the year before, they realized they couldn't do it all on their own because they're basically a building full of lawyers. And so they started bringing in tech people to help, and I was one of them. One of the first cases they gave me was, we've got this Eken issue. And many of you may have seen the Consumer Reports article about vulnerable video doorbells. These are the same doorbells. And this presentation is kind of part two. It picks up, covers some of that, but it then picks up from there. So yeah, we're going to go through a recap. We're going to talk about the supply chain, how all of these devices are coming into the US, because it's basically a huge shadow supply chain. This microphone's not happy with me. Putting in a ton of gear really quickly. So, okay. Yeah, all right. We'll just pass the mic. So this is what we're talking about. If you go onto Amazon and you search for a wireless doorbell, as my lovely assistant will show, this is what they look like. If you search for doorbells typically priced under $40, the majority of the ones you'll find are from these people. I did a quick search when we were sitting down, and it was roughly 1,700 of them that are for sale on Amazon today. They come under all sorts of names. We'll explain that in a bit, but they're basically all the same thing and all from the same entities. These are some of the products, and they get the ones in the middle are a little spicy, but on either side you've got basically the wireless doorbell, the M50 that I mentioned before, and then there's a Bull fixed security camera, which is essentially the same platform, just with a different name. The two in the middle are really interesting, and we haven't actually dug into them fully yet. The reason they're super interesting is the white one with two prongs sells for $20. All right, this is $20 for a pan-tilt zoom wireless camera with built-in 4G LTE, built-in SIMs, and all-you-can-eat data if you switch it on for $160, which just doesn't add up, right? Like, you're not going to make enough money on the hardware, and you're not going to make enough money on the service, so WTF? So we're going to have to dig into that one a bit more. The trail cam is a similar deal. It's a solar-powered trail cam. It's about $40 or something. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so do you want to?
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, so as Marc said.
Eat it.
Test. As Marc said, the OG generation of this comes back to, oh, there we go. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. So sort of the OG reporting of this came out of Consumer Reports. They focused on Eken and Tuck, the two companies. Surprise, Tuck is basically just Eken also. So absolute credit to Stacy and Daniel for their work on this. They found a number of different security issues, and they were actually able to remotely control the camera from, I think they said Brooklyn, and then Stacy's out in California. And yeah, so after they put out the report, Eken responded, and they said, "Whoa, we're really sorry. Yes, we know that there's these issues."
Well, slight correction. For reasons that will come clear later, the way the FCC works with these devices is you'll see that especially foreign entities will use an FCC agent. So when you go into the FCC site and you type in the FCC number off the device, one of the first documents you'll see is an attestation that has the name of the agent as well as the entity. Eken eventually responded after the FCC spent months attempting to go through the actual agent that was listed on all of these products. And we'll explain why they weren't successful.
Okay. They acknowledge the issues. But I guess the summary, though, from Eken was, we're sorry. So this is you with the FCC.
Yeah, so the fine is actually not for the issues with the hardware. The fine is for having an agent that wasn't contactable. Because the whole point of an agent is to allow the regulator to deliver service to these entities. And they couldn't. And if you're really interested, the complaint report is now public, and so is the investigation that we did in attempting to contact the agent. And you'll see, literally, we were sending people to like multiple points in the US to try and deliver service, and yeah, basically getting nowhere. It really was like 6 companies in a trench coat.
And I think that's something you're going to find throughout this talk as well, is that like inside, as you go down the rabbit hole, it continues to be different companies, but they all kind of trace back to Allwinner inside. So Allwinner is one of the major semiconductor manufacturers in China. I keep thinking their logo looked like the one in the bottom corner. Oh, one in the bottom corner looks just like Intel's, but it's my personal bias. And they actually have a specific line of chips for these cameras. It's the V837S. And they've talked about it for years, and it was one of the big pushes from a couple of years back of theirs. And you can see it nicely on the actual circuit board of these cameras when you take them apart.
So, as happens when you're trying to do a talk and getting ready for these things, things changed for us. So when I started looking into these, it's not really working. It's not. It keeps coming out.
I think I turned off my jammers, but
Well, okay, how's this? Right. When I started looking at them, UART was open. You could access JTAG. There was a telnet port that was open on them. ADB was open. A whole bunch of ways that you can mess around with these. When we started getting ready to make our slides, they'd locked it all down. But what will become clear as we go deeper into this is the security fixes are sort of, they fixed the issues that were reported and that were putting on the spotlight, but then they spent a ton of effort locking the device down to make it less reversible. But they didn't do things like change the root password, which is Eken123. So they weren't really interested in security. I think they were more interested in getting out the spotlight and then preventing further analysis.
And I'll note also on Eken's website, they do actually list like the versions, and they, I'll say they have a pretty well-documented end-of-life policy for the devices. So the only real 2 top-level navigation items on their site are, here's when devices go end-of-life, and here's where you go to submit a vulnerability. So I suspect they're looking to at least receive the information, though how far they go is, yeah.
You want to talk about the
About which one?
The Allwinner.
Oh, I just did, yeah. But let's talk about the security issues of them.
So Allwinner as a semiconductor manufacturer has had a bunch of historic issues that have been quite famous. They're well known for violating the GPL. They just take code and they were literally at one point obfuscating other people's code so that they couldn't be dinged for GPL violations. It kind of gives you an idea of what they're like. And not long after that, it was found that there was a backdoor. You literally only had to send a string of root my device, kernel level. That's supposedly fixed, supposedly. With more work to do. And then NCC group did a whole bunch of analysis and produced some more vulnerabilities they found.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. So here's one of the sort of big red flags for me and why we're continuing to look at them. Allwinner is heavily subsidized by the Chinese government. And that immediately sort of makes suspicions about what they're doing, how they're operating, what the influence from the Chinese government is on it. And so while one of the biggest challenges we had with this analysis is, on the face of it, everything looks sketchy but legit, right? Aggressive entrepreneurs trying to push things out. But when you start putting the pieces together, something doesn't smell quite right. Oh.
Yep.
All right, I'll carry on. So the way they're distributing the hardware is literally how I would look at distributing malware. You have a cluster of companies in Shenzhen that make this board, and they all make to these same specifications. They're producing these boards and incrementing the versions so fast that I think there have been more than 10 versions since we started looking last year to today. That tells me they have absolutely no intention of supporting them. Right? If you've got any intention of supporting, you're going to preserve some kind of baseline so that people can support it. They don't. And I'm not just talking little changes. I'm talking like fundamental changes to the hardware layout on the boards and stuff. They're just interested in changing, incrementing, pumping out as fast as they can. So you have this cloud of companies in Shenzhen that are being kind of, they're all producing all-winner stuff, and they're being coordinated by Eken out of Hong Kong. They have then separately set up another cloud of companies with the FCC. I think we're up to 20 or 30 different companies registered that are linked because we can see they're selling the same products, but they're also, in this case, all using the same registry agent. They then put out their products to an almost DGA kind of Amazon marketplace name. If you search for these wireless doorbells, you'll see they have all sorts of names: Tuck, Shark Pop, Converge Beauty, like just random names, and they rotate them and they change all the time, but they're still pushing out the same product. And so that then gets them to the consumer. So I would say more than half of the wireless doorbells on Amazon are these. And if you start going into the super cheap bracket, the i.e. too cheap to be feasible bracket, it's almost all them.
I was going to say, actually, real quick, like, as we were looking on Amazon, one of the things that we really wanted to also try and find was, like, are any of these in the top vendors, but with how many different brands they have, like, they kind of just maintain this bottom flow to everything. Much like also with the registered agents. Well, kind of.
So these are, I mentioned the letter of attestation that you see in the FCC folders on the server. These are the letters of attestation from some of the companies. These all come through the same agent, and they're all signed by the same fictional people. And there's tons of them. Like, if you take out the doorbell ones, there's probably at least another 50 or 60. They're pumping these out. So we don't know if this part of it is all contiguous. It literally could be that this agent is just a sketchy entrepreneur that's looking to facilitate hardware into the US as quick as possible. But the bad thing about this is they've created an almost bulletproof shadow supply chain that's forcing hardware through the FCC onto marketplaces and into the US consumers. And that's kind of problematic. And it's also not just the US. I think that's an attestation from Canada. So these guys are sort of all over. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we do know that at least the registered agent in these has responded to email. We know at least that much. But when in terms of like digging into the rest of it, the cloud kind of starts to form this like a distinctive pattern a little bit because as we knowing that at least he did respond to the FCC, though a bit briefly, the addresses behind these things start to get kind of sketchy. So for one of the addresses they were using, it is it's a mail center next to Cookie Advantage and a locksmith. So not really like an established business. And then even for a second one, it was a postal center. So basically using PO boxes as the locations that these things are coming from. So there's not an office that the FCC can go to talk with them.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the bulletproof FCC registry agent. It was impossible, actually, to get hold of the agent. And even with the closure of the first part of the work FCC did, they never got a real response from the agent. They ultimately got responses from Eken. All of these post office box centers are set up in Chinese communities. It's very kind of very low key, all designed to be hard to trace, with some sort of sketchy links as we dug deeper into them as well.
Also, 24-hour mailbox facility, like that's fantastic, because like my local post office is only open for a kind of narrow window.
Oh, and one really cheeky thing, they specifically set up their mailboxes to refuse legal service. So put your name down and an address for legal service, and then deny legal service. Nice touch.
And as you mentioned as well, this was actually one of the supplier attestation or declarations. This one was for Australia, and I know we've seen them for. I think we have a UK as well, though not a slide for it. So we know also like this supply chain goes beyond, but also they still continue to use like Logan's name, the name on for the GSS service.
And we don't have 100% proof that these are personas, but if you look at the FCC's investigation that are made public, they say essentially the people that they looked, they're not on any known voter registration, they've never paid taxes, they've never owned a vehicle, nothing like that. So that shouts persona to me. And then when you plug their emails into various breach analysis places, none of their emails have ever been touched by anything. Yeah, these aren't people.
They're just so secure. Oh, we're gonna dive in next.
So, who is this mystery agent? Well, the phone number they put on all the FCC stuff, if you look it up through reverse number searches, it consistently comes back to this gentleman, Clark Zhu. It's also the phone number for a sketchy, predatory academic publisher called N-Press Publisher, who are quite a big deal in the academic world for being super sketchy. They release publications that are all off by one kind of naming of famous publications. Yeah.
Reportedly also, their editor-in-chief is out of Egypt, who the editor, she publishes papers, and looks like they're trying to also ride on her and just use her name for as well, without her likely being involved in the slightest.
So, what about their office? Well, Street View didn't help us very much. It's the only building in the block that seems to have been blurred out. But if you go to their website, they have other information on it, I think.
That moved too fast. Yeah, so the second address they listed, their mailing address, goes back to a co-work space. So again, it's another one of these non-distinctive locations. Theoretically, they could be receiving mail there, though it seems unlikely, and the Reddit posts from people are pretty irate about how they're being treated as well. Though, so we had a lot of trouble trying to find really who GSS is. We had less trouble, though, finding Eken. They have a Facebook page. Their Twitter account is actually, Instagram account is pretty fantastic, because beyond just the doorbell cameras, they have a lot of action cams, so they try and play this DJI-like vibe. And even some of the people that we've seen in the documents, so one of them being Edison, he seems cool. He seems like a real guy. I couldn't find Molly, who's another person that regularly comes up, but I think we're pretty much in agreement that we think Edison's real. He's their general manager, or was, for quite a number of years. So there are real people, at least with Eken, that are involved. Yeah. So with Eken, though, a lot of their app or cameras referred to the mobile app side. So once you have these cameras in place, you download their mobile app in order to access the data from it. Use the app to pair the device so that it's linked to your account. I don't know why. Oh, 5 minutes. Oh, wow, we got to move. All right, so Eken loves Gmail also. Doesn't go back to their domain. But as we started expanding out and looking at the text in the app, we found at least 7 others that all look fairly similar. I would actually ballpark there's probably 10 more that may have had a graphic designer at least update their app. So this is what the app actually looks like. You'll notice that there is significant difference between all of these. They all don't look exactly the same. But with a couple others, like these are the ones we were able to feel pretty comfortable that like there's a tight cluster here. I'm just going to cook through for a minute.
Yeah, just go through.
Yep. So mapping it as well, like we found that like some of the apps like Pro MiniGuard, these kept fairly tight lines. But after the Consumer Reports came out and stuff, and they started using Converge Beauty, which is that one with the big C, it starts to become this like tangled mess where they cross-reference, and some emails are used for the abuse more often than others. But it's kind of a hole. But don't worry. They comply with all of the legal requirements to provide adequate security for your data, regardless of whether or not you can trust or not trust the brand. So as we started coming back and like really digging into this research, we wanted to go down and really start looking at these devices as close as we could. And fundamentally, like these are all just simple Linux devices. So looking at actually like what happens when the camera starts up, there's a standard init process, and some of the functionality that we had talked about like before, being able to like telnet into the device, use ADB, the fix for some of these was just to comment it out in the init script. So telnet just doesn't run. It's still there, it's still installed, but thankfully they just commented it out. But the real core of the heart of these cameras is a program called CI app. This does the UNP-NP, it has embedded TLS. It also has a library called VIP Lite, which is something I'm looking really closely at because that has the ability to manage essentially those network connections between devices and whatnot. So when we look at the configuration file, which is saved locally in like /etc ciconfig.ini, you can see also where these devices communicate, which is pretty much just China. Additionally, they upload data at the end to an S3 bucket on Alibaba Cloud, for those who can't see if it's getting cut off. So we spent a bunch of time as well manning the middling devices and trying to crack as far as we could in. And as we were looking at these settings that were originally present, we found that those actually get updated once you actually pair the device. So if you are in, say, California or Massachusetts, it'll give you some slightly different settings. However, this mainly just is the actual like storage bucket for the data, not the actual peer-to-peer stuff or some of the others, but maybe. And in some of the testing, we found China, the US host for Alibaba Cloud. But again, whoever controls the keys and administers that storage bucket likely has access to the data.
Yeah, I'll jump into this. So I think they're essentially they're sending as little data to the US as they can, but just to put a good face on it. So with this packet capture, this was a triggered event. What we've seen is essentially when you trigger an event, like press the doorbell or there's motion in front of it, that then signals to China. And China handles all of the queuing of what to do, any push notification, etc. And it starts streaming the video. The video gets streamed to the US, to Alibaba Cloud in Los Angeles, but also at the same time, or pretty near as down at the same time, to Alibaba in Hong Kong. So the metadata is almost all in China, and certainly some of the video content and images are all in China.
And notably as well, there's some hard-coded IP addresses, but they all seem to link back to this domain gdxp.com. So across the cameras, that's been the biggest selector for continuing to track this. And also, as we've tested, we found data is stored in clear text in the S3 buckets, so there's not doing any per-user encryption. So if you had access to the back-end storage of this, you can see everything. So to kind of summarize, videos sit in the closest region to where you are. Metadata, all of that sits up in Hong Kong with GDXP. One of the other findings that we were playing with, because we went back through some of the research of groups like NCC and some of the things that people had talked about publicly, one of the interesting attacks for these devices is you can technically walk up, hold the button down, and force it into pairing mode, and then repair it and take over someone's camera. That is not fixed. Additionally, NCC Group found that you could send a request with the device's serial number and get back details about essentially the same configuration for CI app and the IP address of the device. They fixed it, but only kinda. You can still request it, but they just give you less data back, but they tell you when the device was charged last, what the battery level is, and the time where it is. Additionally, we do know that GDXP, because we got 15 seconds, GDXP, we know that they're connected to Eken because they have an open LLM, open UI app. When I tried to register on it, I have to wait for one of the folks at Eken to approve my registration. So, final wrap up. We want to work on part 3 of this with all of you. So we have a number of devices. If you're interested in helping us work on this more, grab us after the talk. We'd love to share some of these and add you to a Signal group where we're going to keep on chomping at this for hopefully until the next LABScon.
Probably the last thing to quickly recap on this about why this is important. We haven't proven malice here. This still could all be super sketch, but what we've got here is a massively vulnerable, highly distributed Internet of Things cloud that is capable of mesh networking with itself, that has its own software-defined network controls on it. So if they wanted to do something malicious with it, it's a config push, and they can just connect to it and do what they want. I don't see any signs that they're trying to make these things more secure to protect the consumer. I see signs of them trying to hide the ability to view. And when users get these devices, they don't know that their data is going to go to China, things like that. That little piece of the EULA that Silas showed then, that's all you get to see as a user when you go in and look at any of the apps. As far as most people are concerned, you're just signing up for a cloud service. And the other thing is, these devices don't properly work unless you do sign up for that cloud service. So things like notifications, things like activation on motion doesn't work. So it's all kind of there to lure you in and then connect you into their ecosystem.
You also can't view the videos as well until you purchase a cloud subscription. So I think they're banking both on the subscription services and potentially sketchier business as well. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Do we have any questions? We got a couple minutes for possible questions. One, right here.
Hi, I want to know, why do you think that they're using the same agent for the, it just seems like everything else they put in so much work to have all these thousands of different apps and stuff, why use the same agent?
It's a great question, and I think they're going to pivot away from that now because they got smacked in the face because the agent wasn't responsive. That's why they were fined. And I see signs, if you look at new FCC submissions, that they are actually starting to do it themselves. I think the answer is it was easy. It was the quickest way to break into a foreign market. Here's a boutique method for just getting your FCC certifications done and getting everything in. So they just used it.
It also probably requires setting up new personas each time and new PO boxes, and that's a lot of on-the-ground work.
Any others? We got one more over here.
Did you guys see any clustering of physical addresses for some of the businesses? Were there any specific geographies that you identified clustering of?
At least for the abuse and the contact stuff on the Android apps, a lot of it tended to be in Hong Kong. There was some use of Alibaba Singapore a little bit, but Hong Kong has been, I think, probably one of the key things.
And obviously, physically, I don't think there is a real presence for a lot of this in the US. Eken obviously has an office, but for these sort of other companies, they're all operating out of China, which is why I think the agent was useful. And all of the people doing that, obviously, they're in Shenzhen.
Just as an alternative hypothesis, and maybe I sort of missed pieces of it, is it possible that they simply got scammed themselves with the agent?
It's possible, but I think it's unlikely. It doesn't take much due diligence to look at this agent to see that they're set up to be pretty low profile. I think they were just convenient, right? And their approach is to try and have as wide and almost as anonymous a distribution as possible. And so I think this agent resonated with them for that.
Because I'll also say, like, they could have, like on Amazon, where we see the continuous varying brands and the DGA-like pattern, like if they've established a brand, I would be more apt to suspect that it was some type of scam, where if it was all Eken cameras being tagged and they were participating in the marketplace in a less distributed fashion, like, yeah, but it's possible as well.
A couple more.
So did you think that any of this stuff actually prevent them from being listed on Amazon or eBay? And if they didn't even have that, would it matter? So isn't it like just a waste of time to even get the fake ones? I don't know.
So initially, that was exactly what happened. The earlier devices I've got have all got fake FCC IDs on them. And I think what happened is when you're pumping out fake FCC IDs, the FCC is going to notice. And like, Amazon is generally reluctant to do anything about these. They don't want to police their marketplace. But if you've got the FCC complaining you're shipping devices with fake marks on them, that's a problem. So they quickly pivoted to using agents. In fact, if you look at most of the registrations done for Eken with this agent, most of them happened in like 2023 and 2024.
And also, most of the devices do not have the actual vendor names on them. Like these ones, just smart Wi-Fi door camera. So easily, if they did lose the brand itself, like they'd have to redo packaging. But in this case, they can just swap it to a different name and different product IDs.
And lastly, I think maybe they didn't realize just how easy it is to game the FCC. Like, honestly, there isn't a ton of due diligence done on stuff that gets submitted into the FCC portal. You just have to be a registered agent. You have to have an FRN number on the FCC platform, and then you have to register your company. The FCC is not really there to audit. They do some separate security things, but for this case, it's a case of just submitting documentation and making sure it's there.
I mean, but maybe some of that enforcement is just having to use the FCC's portal. Like, I have to go through the core system for my amateur radio license, and it is, it's a process. Like, I plan ahead and like block time off because it can be a mess.
Yeah, and, you know, if this company is gaming the FCC like this, I guarantee you there's a ton more. So there's a ton of work that needs to be done domestically in terms of ensuring that imports have appropriate controls on them, and when they have the kite marks like FCC on them, that they're genuine and that there is actual due diligence behind it.
I want to catch one more question back here, and then we'll let you guys go for coffee. So let me run.
So the thing is that, if I understand correctly, but it is the suggestion that the model is that it is a backdoor, basically, that you can abuse later on. But what about the trail cameras? These wild cameras are generally not connected all the time to the Wi-Fi because of the energy purposes. So they are sleeping and they wake up only after some Bluetooth connection or something. So it seems like if it is a backdoor on purpose, then these devices are not really fit into that picture. Maybe the vendor who produces them actually not knowing what is the basic purpose, where is the backdoor really, and they don't even know what type of device they should produce or manufacture because they don't know the purpose of the backdoor or something.
Well, let me test to see if, oh, this one works, awesome. Hold on, I got some thoughts for this. So the trail cam has 4G built into it, so it's going to use the cellular network. And it's important to also think about this, if you think about it from like the administrator side of like on Eken's, whoever's running GDXP, theoretically they can look at wherever, if they've got some sort of SQL database on the back end of all this data, they could probably look at how many devices they have deployed by model at any given time. And so and also geographically locate them, probably maybe based on IP and some other details, but they likely have pretty incredible visibility from their side.
So we haven't really dug into the trail cam enough yet. That's going to be part 3, because the LTE thing changes quite a lot. It's always on. It's almost certainly going to be a Chinese mobile carrier or MVNO that roams in the US, which means the data is going to be going all the time to China, because mobile data gets routed through the network that the SIM belongs to. So we're already starting to see in other devices, this is a play that's happening. They're putting these all-you-can-eat SIMs into devices, which then route data through a sketchy country somewhere. But because you're only paying $100 or $200 for a year's worth of free data, people are happy to do that.
I'm happy to do that. I will use that free data.
I have a femtocell, and it's happy to do that too.
I will note also, because one of the things as well with the 4G one is people have noted that UART is disabled, like disables after boot as well. So that's one of the things I know we want to dig into.
Well, it wasn't after boot. Actually, the UART disables itself as soon as it connects to the cellular network.
Yeah. Thanks, Reddit.
All right. One more.
Yeah, well, it's just really tiny. But to confirm, you said that there's mesh networking capabilities. Like, couldn't one of the trail cams mesh with, I don't know, the nearest other camera?
Potentially. That's what we're still working to dig into. So a lot of that is handled by the VIP Lite library. All the I've found a number of good, really technical documents, but it's at the here's this function, here's what it does. But a full summary, I'm still trying to build out.
Yeah, I mean, to end this, there's no sign that this is all deliberately malice. But at the same time, there's a lot of sketchiness going on here, a lot of deliberate attempts to obfuscate things, a lot of personas operating stuff. And even if it's just to game the marketplace, it's a big problem because these devices are vulnerable. The root password is Eken123. In fact, they have 2 root passwords because they use Tina Linux, which, by the way, is all Winner's own Linux. And so it also has the root password of Tina.
And one of the things I guess with slight comfort is the commented out RC over-the-air function, because if they could do over-the-air patching of the full firmware, it's just a waiting game, and they could push out everything. But camera imagery so often gets discounted, but it is incredibly important, and it is, yes.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.